Pennywise's plan for Richie. In the finale of Welcome to Derry, Pennywise isolates Marge from her friends, and decides to drop the mother of all spoilers. Literally. He reveals that Marge will eventually grow up, marry a man with the last name Tozier, and become the mother of Losers Club member Richie Tozier. You know, the loudmouthed kid played by Finn Wolfhard in the 2017 film and Bill Hader as an adult in Chapter 2. The one with the glasses, the terrible jokes, and surprisingly deep trauma. Pennywise even backs this up with a classic Derry Missing Kid poster featuring Richie's face, just to really hammer home the point. "The seed of your stinking loins and his filthy friends bring me my death," he says, because apparently cosmic entities have zero tact. Or is it birth? I get confused. Tomorrow? Yesterday? It's all the same for little Pennywise. Here's where it gets wild. Because it exists outside of time, experiencing past, present, and future simultaneously, it thinks killing Marge in 1962 could prevent Richie from ever being born. No Richie means no Losers Club. No Losers Club means no one to defeat it in 1989 and 2016. It's basically trying to Terminator its way out of getting killed. This revelation directly links the events of the series to Richie's destiny in both IT films, showing that Pennywise has full knowledge of the Losers Club timeline. It knows it loses. It's just desperate enough to try rewriting history. In King's book and the movie canon, Richie's mother, Maggie, is a minor character. But this reveal adds weight to everything. Richie was clearly named after Rich Santos, Marge's childhood love, who died saving her life at the Black Spot. So every time she calls her son's name, she's remembering the kid who sacrificed himself to stop a monster. At least there was a final victory to be had. Richie and the losers eventually kill it for good in 2016, which means Marge's survival wasn't in vain. Her son finished what Rich Santos started. Full circle in the most horrifying way possible. There's something darkly poetic about that. Like generational trauma, except the trauma is a literal murder clown. Beverly's final return. The series finale includes a last-minute cameo that hits like a truck. Sophia Lillis reprising her role as young Beverly Marsh. It's not a throwaway moment either. This is a direct visual and narrative link to the IT films, grounding the prequel firmly in the movie timeline. The epilogue shows Beverly and her father Alvin at Juniper Hill Asylum, grieving over her mother's suicide. It's a brutal scene that explains so much about Beverly's character in the films. Her mother didn't just leave, she died at the same institution where so many of Pennywise's victims and witnesses have ended up. Juniper Hill is basically Derry's dumping ground for anyone who's seen too much, the place where people go when the town decides they're too inconvenient to acknowledge. Beverly's mother was another casualty of Derry's willful ignorance, and young Beverly has to process that loss while growing up in an abusive household. By including Beverly in this moment, the show emphasizes continuity, and explains why certain forms Pennywise takes in the movies are deeply personal to its victims. It's not random. It never is. Pennywise weaponizes your history, your pain, your buried memories. The scene also reinforces that Derry has been breaking families for generations. Beverly's story didn't start with Georgie's death in 1988. It started decades earlier, with her mother's untreated trauma and her father's rage. The old lady's secret? In that same scene, an elderly Ingrid appears to comfort Beverly at Juniper Hill. She's been institutionalized since 1962, ever since she witnessed the deadlights firsthand, and her mind never quite recovered. This provides crucial context for the creepy old woman Beverly encounters in it. Chapter 2. In that film, Beverly returns to her childhood apartment and meets an unsettling elderly woman who claims to live there. That woman is actually Pennywise in disguise, using Ingrid's form to terrorize her. The prequel shows this was a calculated choice. Pennywise didn't randomly pick an old lady. It chose Ingrid specifically because Beverly met her as a child during one of the worst moments of her life. The entity exploits deep-seated memories of trauma, using faces that your brain filed away in the bad things folder. Creators Andy Muschietti and Jason Fuchs explain that Beverly's encounter with Ingrid is a repressed memory. Beverly doesn't consciously remember meeting Ingrid at the asylum, but the experience left an imprint. Somewhere in her subconscious, she remembers that day, that place, that kind woman who tried to help during an impossible time. And Pennywise digs that memory up decades later to use against her. This recontextualizes the Chapter 2 scene entirely. What seemed like a random scare in the movie is actually Pennywise weaponizing a buried childhood trauma. It's pulling from Beverly's actual history, twisting a moment of kindness into something horrifying. Pennywise has been in Beverly's head since she was a little girl, cataloging her pain for future use. Talk about the long game. Inside Neibolt House. The series also explains the origins of Neibolt House, which is basically ground zero for nightmare fuel in both IT films. Turns out, it's not just a creepy abandoned house. It's built on top of the exact spot where Pennywise crash-landed on Earth millions of years ago. Here's the setup. The Shokapiwa people, the indigenous tribe who first encountered it, managed to cage the entity using magical pillars made from cosmic rock. These pillars kept Pennywise contained within specific boundaries, turning what could have been a global apocalypse into a localized Derry problem. Fast forward to 1962, and General Shaw makes the monumentally stupid decision to remove and incinerate one of those pillars. Because why not? Military types in Stephen King stories never leave well enough alone. This reawakens it from hibernation, and creates an opportunity for it to escape the bounds of Derry, and a bunch of kids have to fix what an idiot general broke. Fortunately, Lily retrieves a dagger from the sewer that was made from the same cosmic rock as the pillars. This dagger has the ability to relock the cage, essentially patching the hole Shaw created. But here's the bad news. The dagger is actually a fragment of the comet that brought it to Earth. It's a piece of Pennywise's ride, and it wants to go home. The dagger doesn't want to be buried. It resists, and the further the kids take it from Neibolt House, the more it damages their minds. It's like carrying a cursed artifact that actively fights you every step of the way. The kids are basically lugging around a cosmic homing beacon that's slowly driving them insane, all while trying to re-imprison an ancient evil. No pressure. This ties directly to Neibolt House being a major setting in both films. The house isn't just scary because it's abandoned and falling apart. It's scary because it's literally built on top of the spot where an interdimensional horror crash landed. The foundation is soaked in cosmic chaos. When the losers enter Neibolt in the movies, they're walking into Pennywise's home base, the epicenter of its power. Mike's family legacy. After the battle with Pennywise is done and the dagger is buried, Will Hanlon and his family initially decide to get the hell out of Derry, which seems like the most sensible decision anyone in a Stephen King story has ever made. Pack the car, leave town, never look back, start fresh somewhere that doesn't have a murder clown problem. It's a solid plan, but at the last minute, they change their minds. They decide to stay, taking over Rose's farm and working with the children of Maturin to hold the knowledge of it and the keys to defeating it. This adds another painful layer to Mike Hanlon's story in the It films. Welcome to Derry's Will Hanlon is Mike's grandfather, which means the Hanlon family has been fighting Pennywise for generations. They could have escaped. They almost did, but they stayed because someone needed to remember. Not only does this make what Will goes through sadder, because it was almost avoided, but it also puts massive weight on Mike being the one Losers Club member who stays in Derry as an adult. He's not just the keeper of memories. He's continuing his family's legacy. Mike, even after defeating it as a kid, makes the same choice his grandfather did. Remain in Derry, guard the knowledge, wait for it to return. The Hanlons keep choosing the hard path, the dangerous path. Because if they don't, who will? Someone has to remember. Someone has to be ready. In the films, Mike is often seen as the most isolated loser, the one who couldn't move on, but the prequel reframes that. He's not stuck. He's standing guard, just like his grandfather did, just like his father did. It's not failure, it's a duty, and that makes his story so much heavier. Before we move on, pay attention to how many threads the filmmakers hide in the background of these scenes. Some of the wildest connections between Welcome to Derry and the IT films aren't spoken at all. They're hidden in props, set design, and tiny character moments. I break down those hidden clues in another video explaining every detail you missed in the IT movies in 11 minutes. Make sure to check that out as well. Now, moving on to our next cleverly placed connection, who is Bob Gray? It fans have speculated for decades about Bob Gray. One of the names the entity refers to itself as in King's book. Mrs. Kirsch mentions him as her father, adding that he was a performer. IT Chapter 2 teased this connection but never fully explained it. Welcome to Derry finally gives us the answer, and it's both sad and creepy. Bob Gray was the original Pennywise the Dancing Clown, a real person who performed at local events in the early 1900s. He was genuinely beloved by children, a kind man who just wanted to make kids smile with his dancing clown routine. In 1908, it encounters Bob Gray and witnesses firsthand how much children trust and love the clown. So it does what it does best, steals his form, kills him, and wears his identity like a costume for the next century. This clears up the mystery from the book and movie, and casts earlier scenes in a new light. When Georgie meets Pennywise in the storm drain in 1988, he's initially drawn in because it's a clown. Clowns are fun. Clowns are safe. Clowns make balloon animals and tell jokes, except this clown is an ancient monster wearing the skin of a man who died 80 years earlier. Bob Gray's legacy is being twisted into a lure for child murder. His face, his costume, his mannerisms, all stolen and weaponized. Stan Uris' fate begins. It, Welcome to Derry, introduced Teddy Uris as one of the main characters, a sweet kid who's friends with Maddie and gets caught up in the investigation. And then, episode 1 ends with him getting brutally murdered by Pennywise in monster baby form at the Capitol Theater. Surprise! Nobody's safe. Not even the kid you thought was part of the main cast. Longtime IT fans immediately recognize the surname Uris. Stanley Uris is one of the original Losers Club members, the neurotic, bird-loving kid who tragically takes his own life as an adult, rather than return to Derry to face it again. The prequel confirms that Teddy and Stanley are related. Given that Teddy died in 1962, he's likely Stanley's uncle or distant cousin. The show reinforces this connection by confirming Teddy's family is devoutly Jewish, just like Stanley's. This means Stanley grew up knowing his family had a history with it, even if he didn't know the full story. Maybe he heard whispers about an uncle who disappeared. Maybe he saw old photos and noticed the resemblance. Maybe his parents never talked about it, but the weight of it was always there. His decision to end his life rather than return to Derry takes on new meaning too. Stanley isn't just afraid of dying. He's afraid of continuing a cycle that's already claimed members of his family. He's afraid of being another Uris who doesn't make it out. Teddy's death casts a long shadow, even decades later. The Bowers bloodline. Episode 2 revealed another unexpected connection. Clint Bowers, Derry's police chief in 1962, played by Peter Outerbridge. Clint is the grandfather of Henry Bowers, the psychotic bully who terrorizes the Losers Club in the films, and is later fully manipulated by Pennywise into becoming a straight-up murderer. Clint is shown pressuring Lily to give up the name of Ronnie's father as the supposed suspect behind the Capitol Theater murders. He's corrupt, aggressive, and willing to pin crimes on convenient scapegoats rather than investigate properly. Sound familiar? The first It film introduced Henry's father, Butch Bowers, who's also a cop and an abusive piece of work. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, apparently, and if we're tracking the family lineage, there's a solid chance that a younger Butch Bowers might show up later in Welcome to Derry. 3 generations of Bowers men, all terrible in their own special ways. Clint covers up crimes. Butch abuses his son. Henry becomes a knife-wielding maniac who carves his name into kids' stomachs. It's a family tree watered with violence and corruption, and Pennywise absolutely loves it. The entity doesn't even have to work that hard with the Bowers family. They're already halfway to monstrous on their own. It just gives them a little push. This connection shows how Derry's rot runs deep. The police force has been corrupt for generations. The system protects itself, not the people. Alvin Marsh foreshadowed. Alvin Marsh is Beverly's abusive father, a character who looms large over her story in both the book and the films. He's not a good man. He's controlling, violent, and there are deeply uncomfortable implications about his behavior toward Beverly as she grows up. While Alvin hasn't appeared in Welcome to Derry yet, Episode 1 includes a small but significant Easter egg. His name is written inside a heart on the wall in Lily's school. It's a tiny detail, but it confirms Alvin is already around in 1962. Probably as a teenager. He's out there somewhere, already carving his name into things, already marking his territory, already showing signs of the possessive, controlling behavior that will later terrorize his daughter. It's the kind of detail that makes you wonder who Alvin was before he became Beverly's nightmare. Was he always like this? Or did Derry break him the way it breaks everyone else? Either way, seeing his name scrawled on a school wall is unsettling. It's a reminder that Beverly's trauma didn't come out of nowhere. Her father was a product of Derry too, shaped by the same toxic environment that lets Pennywise thrive. Shokapiwa versus It. In Chapter 2, had Mike learned the secrets of defeating Pennywise from the Shokapiwa tribe, discovering the ritual of Chud through their history. But in the movies, these were mostly nameless, faceless people in flashbacks, which felt like a missed opportunity. Welcome to Derry fixes this by making the Shokapiwa and their descendants actual characters with agency and depth. Rose and Tanielle, members of the Children of Maturin, become central to the story. They're not just exposition machines. They're warriors in their own right, carrying on a fight that's been going for centuries. Rose, in particular, is given a rich history of facing off with Pennywise. She's the one who provides the Maturin root tea that saves Dick Halloran. She's the one who keeps the knowledge alive, passing it down through generations. The show reveals that the Shokapiwa were the first to face it when it crash-landed on Earth. They discovered its weaknesses, learned how to contain it, and built the cage that kept it trapped within what would eventually become Derry. They've been preparing for each 27-year cycle of violence ever since, keeping records, teaching their children, making sure someone always remembers. They're the reason Derry hasn't been completely consumed. They're the reason there's any hope at all. By centering their story, Welcome to Derry corrects a major oversight from the films. The Shokapiwa aren't background characters. They're the reason the Losers Club even has a chance. Without them, without their knowledge, it would have won centuries ago. Now, before you leave Derry, remember, Pennywise doesn't always show up as a clown. Every form it takes reveals something about its victims and its true nature. If you want to dig into the nightmare shapes behind the makeup and balloons, check out my breakdown of every form Pennywise takes, explained in 11 minutes.